I'm going to tell you the story of how we got to this place where we've got the most beloved and inspiring artist and producer in the music industry here with us. But I want to pick up first where we left off last week. So if you have been here for a while, you know that we're on talk 3 of 5 on overcoming anger. And if you haven't been here before, either online or in person, you know now, right? Okay, now you know. And the first couple of talks turned out to be really powerful. And I say that even as the person who wrote them, because somehow when I'm sitting down putting them on paper, I get part of the picture. But when I speak the words, I get more clarity. And then when we come together at the Wednesday night service where we pull everything apart, I get even more clarity as I see it in the perspectives of each of your lives as we ask questions and find answers in each other. So they were powerful for me as well. All of them are generally. So we started by looking at the core teachings of A Course in Miracles. Yeah, Jerry, I went there. I'm going to Course in Miracles all the time now. You didn't think I'd get there, huh? Now, this core teaching of the Course in Miracles is also the core teaching of Jesus throughout the New Testament. And it's also the core teaching of Charles Fillmore and Ernest Holmes. Remember what I shared last week from The Science of Mind on page 334. He said, the mystics have taught that there is but one ultimate reality, and that this ultimate reality is here, now, if we could but see it. The great mystics have been illumined. They have seen through the veil of matter and perceived the spiritual universe. Everywhere that there's been people on earth, there have been people throughout the ages who just knew this truth I'm going to share. And what is it? The truth that they've all known and taught is that the only thing that matters, the only thing that's real, is love. And that love is the very essence of our oneness with all that is. That love is the guiding principle behind everything. And there's a second part of that truth about love, and that can be a lot harder to come to terms with. It's that every time that we think that we're separate from or in opposition to anything, whether it's a person or an event or anything else, every time that we think that we're unconnected, we're immediately coming from a place of fear. In other words, no matter how angry or vain or boastful or demeaning or deprecating or whatever word or idea you want to use, if it isn't love, it's fear, regardless of the name badge that we pin on it. Those are the only things that exist within our experience, love and fear. So let's look at it this way. It is a fact that we are always part of the oneness of all that is, okay? But when I say that it's a fact, I am speaking quantifiably. All right, any scientist who understands matter will tell you that everything that is made up of the same stuff, right? Whether it's an object or a life form, it's all made up of the same stuff. It's all one thing, right? It's all energy, okay? And so like it or not, we are made up of the only thing that anything anywhere can be made of. And when we begin to see ourselves as an individual, different and separate from everything else that is the same as us, which if only from a scientific perspective we know isn't true, right? That's where we begin to fear. And it is from that place of fear that ego that we're so engaged with, that ego pipes up. And it starts to reinforce and amplify those feelings of separation and fear. And if none of that made sense, listen to the first 2 talks online on our website, santanitachurch.org, or Facebook, or YouTube, or all of the other things that are on the thing in your program. I listed them all. If you listen to those talks, you'll kind of be ahead of the game here. Until last Wednesday, I wasn't sure of the direction that I was going to go in this week. And I admitted both last week and the week before that I've really struggled with these talks to find a starting point. My son said last week when he saw me sitting at the table kind of baffled, and you know when you're trying to write something and your hands are poised above the keyboard and your mind locks and you're just staring there and not moving? He caught me doing that. And he said, "What you doing?" I said, "Not writing." And he said, "Why?" And I explained that I was struggling. I was really struggling to figure out how to get that ball rolling. And he said, "Well, that's because you don't get angry." And that makes sense. And he's mostly right. Notice I said mostly there, okay? So I made the same admission of cluelessness last Wednesday, and I asked the group who came to the service what they thought I should do. And the overall response was that I should explain how I got to this point where I don't really get angry, right? This place of peace. But before I do that, I have to come clean, okay? I have to admit that I was very tempted to passionately cuss out my printer last night, using all the great many words that I have in my mind in several languages. I was tempted. It ran out of magenta toner, just the magenta, right? And it literally started screaming at me, like really loud. They really make those error sounds as annoying and grating and loud as they can, right? So that first time I jumped and I went, "Oh no, what's happening?" So I went over and I found out what the problem was, and I had a new cartridge and I put it in. And that should have been fine, but the immediate screaming alert went right back off again, and I jumped again, and it said incompatible. This is the same cartridge that I bought 3 months ago, right? Okay, so I said, this is compatible. Why are we not getting along here? This is absolutely compatible. And I said, "You know what? It's identical to the empty one I just took out of you. It is absolutely compatible. The thing is not giving me anything." So I'm talking with it, and I put it back in, and I closed the thing, and it screamed again, and it said no at the top of its little electronic lungs. So then I thought, not taking the bait yet to get loud back, I thought, you know what? I'm going to take the toner from the new one and I'm going to dump it into the cartridge of the old one. And I thought that I was a genius in that moment. Like I have foiled the whole plan, right? And so I did that, and I didn't make a mess, and I didn't end up with pink stuff all over me, which was mind-blowing. And I put it in there, and it said it was not going to work and I had to replace the cartridge. So I went on to Google, I went spelunking, and it turns out that there's a chip in the base of those printer cartridges, a little computer chip, and every time that you print documents, that chip keeps track of it. So if I put the toner in the old cartridge, the old cartridge told the printer it was empty. So I went and I found a little screwdriver, right? Found a little screwdriver. I unscrewed the new cartridge and I unscrewed the old cartridge, and I took the chips out and I swapped them, and I'm like, I am brilliant. I have solved this problem. And that is where the problem got worse. I put it in, and it still said incompatible, and I started speaking very loudly to the printer, and I said, I'm not even using magenta. I'm printing in black and white. Why are you screaming about pink? This has nothing to do with anything. And my husband, who's in the other room, says, huh? And I said, nothing, I'm talking to the printer. And true to his normal helpful self, he said, you know it can't hear you, right? Yes, yes, I know. I got quieter, of course, but I wanted to reason with my husband and tell him, it makes me feel connected to it when I talk to it, even when I talk a lot more loudly than perhaps I should. I feel connected. I feel like we're going to cooperate if it's a two-way street, right? It screams, I scream, we all scream for printing. But my whole point here is I can get frustrated with stuff, okay? I am not some paragon of patience, and I'm not impervious to the temptation to somehow control things that are happening around me. I've just learned how to not lose all of my marbles when it comes to the stuff that matters, like people. Like the stuff that happens in life, like what appears from the outside looking in to be utter chaos. Those things I have learned to sit back and observe. I'm going to put you notice I have my Kleenex ready for you at this point, but I'm going to stop waving it around now. So I've learned to sit back and observe. And being an observer is a really wonderful and gratifying thing. When you're an observer, your hands are empty, right? And your pockets are empty, and you're not carrying around any baggage. You're not carrying around any ammunition, so you have no judgments or opinions to hand out to anyone about anything, right? Those are gone, and you can only be an observer in the moment. You aren't an observer when you're worrying about the future. How can you observe what isn't happening yet, right? And you aren't an observer when you're looking at what's already happened. Then you're just a historian, keeping track of the past. And you can't see what's happening when your eyes are on the books you've already written. But how does one get to that place where they aren't looking backward or forward, and they aren't painting everything that happens in shades of black or white and right and wrong? Like my printer, okay? And that is one word: accountability. Now, I'm not talking about accountability and judgment. Give me a minute here. I have handed out this thing a few times here, but for me it all began with a daily inventory, okay? I started doing it every single day, and I did it for years and years until it became automatic. I held myself accountable for my choices and my judgments and my actions, and I stopped keeping track of what everyone else was doing, and I started keeping track of what I was doing. It's very hard to keep track of everyone else's scores and also keep track of our own. And I tried to come up with a metaphor for that. And I sat there and I was like, how can I make this make sense? And a very clear image, which makes no sense actually to me, came into my head, and that is bowling. Right? I don't bowl. So why bowling? I don't know, but I went with it. Has everyone been bowling at night? You know, when it's dark and they have all the neon stuff, or have you seen it? Right? We've all seen that. Okay. So imagine that you're bowling, okay, and it's really, really crowded there, and the lanes are all full, and it's dark, but it's also really loud. They always have the music playing, and everybody's yelling, and the balls and the pins. And there you are, you're bowling with other people on your lane, okay? Everybody's there with me, right? Okay, now, imagine the same scenario. But while you are bowling and you're keeping an eye on the scores of the other people on your lane, so that you can play the game with those players around you, you also have to keep an eye on everyone else's scores as well as your own. Everyone. All 200-300 people in the bowling alley, you have to keep track of all the scores, okay? That doesn't sound doable, right? How are you going to play your game and keep track of all those scores? The fact is, you have a choice in that moment. You can either play the game and try to get the best score that you can and have a good time, or you can stop playing and watch everybody else play. And if you stand back to watch everybody else playing in that crowded and dark and noisy bowling alley, you can't really get a feel for what's actually happening between those people on each lane, right? So expand that idea. Imagine that not only do you have to keep track of the scores and the assumed motivations and possible strategies of those in your immediate circle, but you've got to do that in this impossibly humongous bowling alley filled with people all over the world. Can we keep track of all of those things that everyone else is doing in the world? Probably not. It seems impossible, right? But really, that's what we're doing every day, right? We're keeping track of everything that's going on all around us, here and way over there, both in our immediate circle and globally. And we're keeping track of who's responsible for what in each situation, and then deciding who's right and who's wrong. And then we think that we have to share our opinion with everybody else, right? And if they don't agree, we talk at them until they either agree and they're on team ego with you, right? Or they're the opposition. And suddenly you're in the midst of a fight. But let's look at what's actually happening there. Okay, sure, you can make assumptions based on what you see. Whether you're dealing with people immediately in that bowling lane of life, right? Or you're looking at stuff on the other end of the global bowling alley that you're not directly involved in. You can make assumptions, but you have no way of knowing with any real clarity what's actually going on. You have no way of really, truly knowing with absolute certainty what everyone's intentions are, where they're coming from, why they're expressing the thoughts and feelings that they're expressing. And so you've got a choice. Play the game and keep track of your own score. Or keep an eye on everyone else's score and try and figure out what each one of them is actually thinking and doing, what their plan is, and then create enemies or allies based on your interpretation of things. And when you're judging right and wrong and then arguing with and telling the world about it all, building all of those ally or enemy situations, you're not really looking at what you're doing. What your part in all of it is, what truly is or is not yours to do. You can't do both. It's far easier to pay attention to you and play the game joyfully. And that's what that inventory allowed me to do. It helped me learn how to keep my ball in my own lane, to pay attention to the way that I played the game, not how everyone else was playing. And it was a beautiful gift, which made bowling and my life, made it a lot more wonderful. In her book, The Mystic Jesus, which I have here, The Mind of Love, Marianne Williamson says on page 78, and I'm going to read it from the page because it's easier, it's bigger. She says, the ego will use anything from your past or your present to convince you and the world, convince you that the world, see, it's bigger and I still can't read it, to convince you that the world is a dangerous place and that everyone, including you, isn't good enough. Thinking such things, we shrivel. We become defensive rather than open-hearted, critical rather than forgiving, always seeing a reason to blame rather than bless, inventing sometimes the cleverest ways to cast others from our heart. For too many, the human condition is a mental nightmare, and like any nightmare, it feels very real while we're in it. Yet the only way to escape is to awaken The enlightened masters of the world are called the awakened ones for that reason. They've awakened from the illusions that dominate the world. The purpose of our lives is to heal from the wounds of living in the world and to help others heal as well. Jesus is in your mind to remind you you're more than good enough. To remind you he's with you and to remind you that miracles are your natural inheritance. Your mistakes have no power to uncreate what God created. The ego is both that which sets us up to do the wrong thing and that which punishes us savagely for having done so. God is not that which sends us to hell, she says, but that which delivers us from it. He desires to correct our mistakes, not punish us for them. Another way to live means another way to be. Another way to be means another way to think, and another way to think becomes a different way to act, and a different way of acting then creates a different life. We can give birth to a better version of ourselves. We are healed of the wounds that belong to a self with which we no longer identify. As with everything else, practice makes perfect. In your programs is a slip of paper, and it's titled Tools for Transformation, and it really does offer those tools, so I encourage you to use them. There's a simple morning prayer, and I didn't bring it with me, I probably should have. So there's a simple morning prayer, which is very powerful, and it just says, you ask Spirit, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say and to whom? And then you listen for the answers to those questions as the day unfolds and trust that you're being guided the right way. And then there's the evening reflection, which is a type of inventory. It's similar to the one that I did, but it's one which challenges you to identify not only the areas of your day where you were maybe trying to not bowl in your own lane, but it also helps you to see where you were fully present as the impartial and trusting observer. And I did kind of tweak it. I added my own stuff. And it makes you see miracles and beauty in each day. Just remember, as you're keeping track of you, that you remember that you're beloved, and you're amazing, and you're learning. That's all. You're not right or wrong for what you're doing, you're just learning to see things differently. Okay, and I will tell you that I messed up on one of them, and I should have added another step, so if you want to pencil it in. I was busy adding my own stuff to her list, and I left out one of her steps. It's a good one. It says, what was the part I played in whatever problem plagued me? What was the part I played in the problem that was taking up space in my mind today? That's huge, right? And we're all here in this church today because we believe that there's something greater behind everything, right? We all believe that there's something guiding all of this, and we can call that Spirit or God or Jesus or Jehovah or Allah or the Great Spirit or any other name. Regardless of what we call it, it's that power behind all that is, right? And it is my job to plead its case, I guess you could say, right? That's my job up here. So, a couple of weeks ago, well, maybe it was it was 2 weeks ago, Phil Zeroni, who facilitates the Course in Miracles on Tuesday nights, he stayed after, and everybody had gone, and he said, I read the book, and we all try to figure out how this God thing works, but you just know. How do you do that? How do you not question? And I told him I know because I observe. I pay attention. And when I observe without judgment, without action, choosing to just move as love, I see the divine pattern behind it all. And I don't often get to show you hard examples of what I mean when I talk about the reason that I trust. But recently I've been given two verifiable, unquestionable examples to share with you. First, there's the fires, right? And that is not the proof. Okay, that is not the proof I'm talking about. It was big and it was scary, and we're all going to need each other for a really long time so that we can all heal and regrow, right? And we're doing that. But this is about something that began months before the fires. Here on this campus, we have events all month long, okay? Every single month. That's our bread and butter. It's how we pay the bills. There are at least a couple of weddings or other churchy type services, and somewhere between 2 and 6 receptions and showers and parties and other functions here in the sanctuary or in the fellowship hall in the fireside room over there. You're going to see that after the service. That's every single month. And these things are booked sometimes 2-3 years in advance. So our calendar is always busy. And that's not only consistent, but it's been increasing with each passing month for the last several, until January 4th. Okay, that was our last reception. That was 3 days before the first spark, which started the fire. And the calendar up until 2 weeks ago was clear until May 17th. Not a function. That's 4 months with literally nothing on the calendar. That's a huge anomaly when you look at what happens on this campus. If you compare that against any other 4-month period of the year, it is a major break from the norm. And why is that significant? It is significant because if we had noticed that big gaping hole in our calendar, and if we had frantically worked to make sure that we had stuff scheduled so that money would be rolling in, if we worried about the bills, if we had reacted in fear or gotten angry and tried to find reasons to blame for people not booking things, and then fought to fill those empty places until we booked stuff, we wouldn't have had the space available for High Point Academy to hold their classes while their campus recovers from the fire. Those kids and their teachers wouldn't have had anywhere to go. But our campus, our miraculously empty calendar, and the vision of our head in school, Tim Spurrier, gave them a temporary home, someplace stable. And I've already told some of you about that. I've already shown you the calendar. I've shown the hard evidence. But what you don't know is that we just learned that High Point's campus is almost ready for them. And the day that we learned that they're getting ready to go back to their old campus soon, people started booking events. So the calendar that was empty is filling up. So clearly something behind it all knew that there would be a need for those kids from High Point. And it made sure that we'd be able to fill that need. And it cleared the way only a few days before they needed it. And that's compelling evidence, right? That's pretty compelling. But would you believe me if I told you that that divine thing behind it all had a plan about all this stuff we've been going through? And I can trace it all the way back to October. Would you believe that? Because I can. In October, this past year, I went to the Anton Conference. That's the affiliated New Thought Network at Unity Village in Missouri, and it was incredible. And that is where I first met Daniel. He performed and he spoke there, and after his session was over, I went to the table that he set all of the things that he has for sale on. Oddly enough, it is eerily similar to the table, the table that you're going to see him at after the service, and which I encourage you to go check out. And I went to that table and I bought 2 things. First, I bought this really gorgeous ring that his wife made. She's a silversmith, or she do all metal or just silver? Silversmith, and this is a fidget ring. This is for people like me who struggle to focus. this is fantastic because I can spin the thingies around and it quiets the brain so that I know where I'm going, and it's beautiful. The other thing that I bought was this flash drive. And that flash drive had Daniel's entire collection, 180 plus songs and 8 songbooks and 130 something instrumental tracks and pre-made PowerPoint slides, which I really appreciate because that's a lot. And it had lyrics and bonus material, and I was so jazzed that I got that I called Mona back there, and I'm like, guess what I got? I was just thrilled. And then, a while after I got home, I put the flash drive into my computer, and my computer, not unlike my printer last night, said, this ain't gonna work. It wasn't formatted. So I thought maybe I was missing something, because I am me. I need fidget rings. I asked my husband and my 2 boys, who are infinitely smarter than me about these things, and they said, no, it's not formatted, you can't use it. And if you press the do you want to format button, you're gonna really mess it up. So I reached out. I reached out to Daniel, and he apologized, and he said, you know what, I'll get a new one out to you. And I waited, but I really wasn't paying attention. And time passed. And to be honest, I really didn't think about it until the choir doubled in size over 2 months. All of a sudden we went boom. And I thought, ooh, we need new music. And then right after that, the fire happened. And I realized that we needed music that was going to bring comfort and healing and inspiration and help us generate that momentum as we gather together in love to rebuild. And Miss Mona reminded me about that drive that I'd forgotten about, so I reached out again about a week and a half ago. The email address that I'd had through Square bounced back, so I went online and I found his booking email, and I sent a message there. And I asked if there was a chance that replacement drive could be sent soon, because right now, after the fires, our community is in need of that kind of comfort and inspiration that only Daniel's music can offer. And his booking agent, Sarah, got back to me really quickly and extended his offer to come today, to deliver his musical healing and comfort to us all in person. What a gift, right? We could have kept score. We could have kept score of all the empty calendar dates and of the unformatted drive, and we could have nagged and forced and blamed. And what would we have to show for it? We'd maybe have some bookings and a working flash drive sent by mail. That's what we'd have if we chose the ego's path of anger. But we trusted. We trusted so much that we didn't even see a problem. And so when our trial by fire came, literally and figuratively, we were held. What did we get for our trust, for our surrender, for our patience? We got a campus full of beautiful new kids and all the joy that they bring. And we got this man, the legend himself, Daniel Nahman, right here in our sanctuary. Folks, anger is a choice. And I can't tell you what to choose from moment to moment in your lives. But I can tell you that I will choose to trust the great I am behind this all. Every time. Except maybe where there's a printer involved. But I hope that you will join me in that trust. I hope that together we can continue to prove that there is a great love behind it all. Thank you.